Welcome back, everyone. It's been a busy week in games. Finally, there is some information on this year's E3. Aside from some returning big names, things are looking pretty light, and they really did try to pull a big money move. Then, Xbox Game Pass. Oh, it is aggressive because they just snapped up a PlayStation Studios developed exclusive, so that's bonkers. And that's all while Xbox Showcase appears to be on the horizon. Also, Diablo 2. Testing has started. Brazil is taking aim at loot boxes, and they're really entering the fray with many other groups. And Tencent, unsurprisingly, well, it's a big thing for them. Plus, of course, a whole bunch more as well. And this is normally where I do some Patreon promo, but guess what? We're going to be doing next week, I believe, a little bit of a soft relaunch of the Patreon. There's going to be some fresh, new content, new things, big ideas. So all I'm going to say is stay tuned for that. And don't worry, of course, there will be some loot. With that said, let's go. E3. It may only be April, but E3 is already making headlines. So for some catch-up here, the ESA, a group whose some of their things they've said have certainly went down fantastically with gamers, they were originally planning to paywall parts of the all-digital E3 that they wanted to do. So basically, they wanted to do a BlizzCon virtual ticket for E3. That would obviously be, I think, quite silly for what E3 is, and it's something they have went back on. So, multiple sources had claimed that features like game demos would be part of a premium package that would cost $35. That is, I think, for consumers, a dreadful enough idea. I mean, even paying to watch proper, like old E3, that would be a hard sell, never mind this. E3 has obviously been struggling for relevance even before the pandemic wrecked its 2020 plans. It's basically a bit of a laughing stock. It's obvious the big publishers don't need E3 anymore, although, in fairness to them, they do actually have big promises for this year. It is now the Electronic Entertainment Experience, rather than Expo, and it's, they say, not an in-person event turned digital. So, honestly, I don't think any of us care that much beyond the game announcements, though. That's really what it's for. Now, on that front, E3 may not be that bad. Some of the big names this year are, well, unsurprisingly, Xbox, Nintendo, Capcom, Ubisoft, Take-Two Interactive, and more, so usual suspects. Unsurprisingly, Sony, EA, and Activision Blizzard will be absent because they are focusing on their own established events instead. And then also absent are the on-demand game demos that the ESA had reportedly made a big deal. They were supposed to run, right? They're supposed to be running these big demos through GeForce Now for fans and press, but that seems to be a no-go. Which is a pity, because it would have been a neat use for GeForce Now. I mean, to be honest, like having show floor demos be instantly accessible from your own home, that would be an undeniable victory for E3, so it's sad they didn't get that done. However, the ESA have said that they explored many possibilities with their partners and sponsors. Now, there is going to be what they call on-demand content, but that's not very specific, is it? Now, before 2020, E3 refused to evolve with the times, right? Better shows were stealing the spotlight, but now that the pandemic has forced their hand, in fairness to them, maybe they will be able to make a genuine leap forward. Next up for shows then, well, another Xbox gaming showcase is actually due in the coming weeks. So according to ZDNet, Microsoft's plan to hold a What's Next for Gaming event alongside their annual Microsoft Build conference was what they want to do, and that's going to be around May 25th to 27th. Now, a couple of Xbox higher-ups have been teasing news recently too, and I think that's just in line with Xbox's just faster, more frequent updates, right? And being pretty hip to the community. The next thing then is the update about MLB The Show 21. And I don't bring this up because it's something I'm super interested in, but because that's a Sony-developed PlayStation exclusive series. Or rather, it was. Because when it releases on April 20th, it will be on Xbox platforms and on Game Pass day one. For the past 15 years, Sony have developed the series exclusively for PlayStation. However, when MLB renewed the licensing deal in 2019, they wanted to bring it to, well, they say, more players and baseball fans. Sony confirmed it themselves. MLB decided to take the Xbox money and get it on Game Pass even though that makes Sony's offering look tragic by comparison. So, Day 1 Game Pass launches have worked wonders for some games. I mean, a recent example, of course, is Outriders. By the way, we did a video on that, so if you'd like to know what's up with that video, you can check out the report we did. But suffice to say, Game Pass seems to be a humongous hit for Microsoft, and one that Sony are maybe struggling to compete against. I mean, generally, Microsoft seem to be happy with these deals. In fact, the next big deal, according to Tom Henderson, could be Battlefield 6. Imagine Battlefield 6 being Day 1 Game Pass. Wow. So between an insane game lineup and even mobile streaming support, Game Pass really is having a good time these days. I mean, you can now stream GTA 5 to your phone via xCloud. And you might roll your eyes at the idea of that particular experience, but that could be huge for quite a sizable audience, and even for those of us who don't really care, it gives us options. Now back to the MLB story though, Sony just don't have a means to compete, and despite Jim Ryan saying that he doesn't think the subscription model is sustainable, MLB sees their players are losing out, which is somewhat rich because Xbox are running rings around Sony on that front. Game Pass has editions like Outriders, MLB, GTA 5, while the big new games in PS Plus are Borderlands 3 and Marvel's Avengers, right? That's kind of old news stuff. Oh, and then also, Sony are running PS Plus and PS Now concurrently. It's not bundled together. So, at any rate here, Xbox have got a solid strategy that they're executing on pretty clearly and they're communicating really well on. And this time, they managed to take a Sony exclusive from right under their nose. And they might be doing it again soon. Sony were the publisher behind Death Stranding in the PS4. And they seemed to have Kojima on retainer after his split from Konami. Well, according to VentureBeat's rumor monger Jeff Grubb, Xbox are actually talking with Kojima to publish their next game. That's even why Phil Spencer had his Homo Ludens figure on his shelf, apparently. Of course, take the Jeff Grubb stuff with a grain or maybe a brick of salt because he's been very quick to report on the things that he's heard, not always necessarily with those things actually happening when he said they would. I think a lot of Elden Ring fans have got feelings on that one. Now, there is one last thing, though, on the Xbox versus Sony thing to talk about, and that is Deathloop. Of course, Deathloop is the Bethesda-published PS5 exclusive, and it's now been delayed to September 14th. Now, this is apparently Arcane's decision where they just needed more time on the game, which is a very welcome thing, but it is, technically speaking, it's Xbox delaying a PS5 exclusive. Is that conspiratorial? Yes. Is it funny? Also yes. Hopping over then to an old favorite, BioWare have actually revealed extensive gameplay changes for Mass Effect Legendary Edition. Honestly, as somebody who played through all those games and, loved them in spite of their ropiness, it kind of read pretty damn well to me. So they intend to unify the Mass Effect trilogy without removing what made each game unique. And the result of that, then, is a lot of gameplay changes, particularly to the first game. I don't know if you've tried to, shoot in the first game, but it's a ropey experience. Now, it's their first entry. It is full of teething issues. It's old-school RPG in ways that are not great for a game that involves gunplay. So, in terms of what's being done, well, unsurprisingly, the Mako has been reworked for better traversal and handling. Your squad mates can now actually be commanded directly, as in the sequels, and the gunplay has seen an overhaul. Honestly, I'll believe that when I see it, because Mass Effect 1 gunplay being good is a bit of a weird thing to think about. But look, the complete list is huge, way too much to get into here, but it does seem like very well-directed, targeted changes that will make the gameplay experience better, while just allowing you to play through the same stories and the same stuff. So essentially perfect, like if you've been wanting to recommend Mass Effect to one of your friends. And then another thing is, of course, Mass Effect 3 and its, war resources, whatever it's called. But basically they're rebalancing that war effort mechanic in such a way that If you 100% Mass Effect 3, you will get one of the better endings, but they're actually bringing stuff that you do in the other games into that, and they're also rebalancing such that you do not need to grind any of the Mass Effect... Well, there is no Mass Effect 3 multiplayer, but the original war effort system was, of course, based on you grinding out a little bit of the multiplayer. Somebody spent 15 grand on Mass Effect multiplayer cards, remember? But of course, they've had to rebalance it because that multiplayer is not going to be a thing. So there you go. Basically, this is good for Mass Effect fans, and this is the first step, I think, in Mass Effect becoming a relevant thing again. So hopefully, Mass Effect 4, or whatever they call it, which we know is in development, hopefully it'll be good. It is Brazil and exploitative video game mechanics time. So, Brazil are joining the ranks of countries who are going after loot boxes. And, we didn't really cover it because it was just an update, but, there is more stuff from the UK as well. Pressure does seem to be tightening here, and basically Brazilian authorities have launched an inquiry as to whether randomized monetization mechanics constitute gambling, which, of course, is something that in Brazil is not legal. So, depending on what their findings are, that could be pretty big. Now, companies that sell loot boxes, including Activision, EA, and Ubisoft, are being targeted with this, obviously. But it's not just that, because reportedly a company called Garena were told to remove loot boxes from sale for their game, Free Fire. So that's interesting. I mean, if a full ban is approved, Brazilian authorities are reportedly considering enforcing fines of around $700,000 a day. I mean, maybe that's enough money to start a conversation, and it's the sort of thing where I don't know how much money they make, but I do know that, football, soccer, is humongous in Brazil. Now, I don't know how many Brazilian players are buying those FIFA Ultimate Team cards, but surely, I mean, they love football over there. FIFA Ultimate Team makes EA a lot of money. It would suck for EA if that stuff was banned, so, you know what? Yeah, interesting. I can't wait to see what happens here. And again, with all of the other countries, and will we actually get to the situation where it's just not okay to design a game basically a bit evilly? Sort of thing where a bunch of devs don't actually consider it to be evil, but it's just that sort of thing. Yeah, I know stories of people, they join companies and the sort of the old boys club at the company, the people who have just been, AAA game devs for so much of their life. To them, all of that stuff is so normal, they don't even know that it's wacky, and they think that people who are angry at it are like some weird fringe. But no, people are actually being hurt, and across the world, because the industry is not self-regulated well, now government agencies are actually taking a look at this shit. About damn time. Okay, let's move on. Quick fire time. So, Diablo 2 Resurrected single-player alpha has started, and it runs until Sunday. Sadly, I don't think I made my way in, but the players who did, they can experience the first 2 acts as one of 3 classes, the Barbarian, the Sorceress, or Amazon. So that's that. I'm very curious to see how it plays. Of course, this is a game that's being handled by Vicarious Visions, so even if the thought of another Blizzard remaster fills you with a bit of dread, well, no, it's Vicarious Visions. They did Tony Hawk Pro Skater. There is hope for this one. Then in other news, Nintendo have dropped Pac-Man 99, another retro-style Battle Royale exclusive to Nintendo Switch Online. Looks solid enough. I suppose they needed something to fill the Super Mario 35 hole, even if they dug that themselves. And funny and all that Mario stuff, because of course, now that, now that it's gone, there's scalping and stuff going on, all the usual scummy shit that goes down. So thanks, Nintendo, for weaponizing FOMO once again, as you are so goddamn good at doing. Yeah. And then next up for some questionable decisions, we've got Atari, who have decided to switch up their leadership and split into 2 divisions, Atari Gaming and Atari Blockchain. So after hotels and casinos, Atari are focusing on cryptocurrency. Okay then. Then also, Tencent's, I never know if it's called Timmy, T-I-M-I, whatever it is, but that group may actually be the world's largest developer after claims that it brought in $10 billion in revenue last year. That's quite a lot of money. So a new report from Reuters suggests that they could account for 40% of Tencent's gaming revenue, and they could use that money to expand into AAA PC and console gaming. Yeah, I think with 10 billion coming in, you might just be able to do that. Crazy money all around. I mean, that's what happens when you're making humongous giga mobile money. Then next up, a couple of hidden games turned up this week, and one of them's crazy because it turns out there's a native 4K port of Time Splitters 2 that is hidden inside Homefront: The Revolution. Yeah, it's just in there. It is apparently accessible with an unlock code, but the dev basically the dev that put it there, can't remember what the code is. I hope we can find that code. I mean, come on, native 4K, Time Splitters 2, let's go. Then elsewhere, footage of the cancelled Dreamcast title, Castlevania Resurrection, has been shared by game preservationists online. It looked promising back in 1999, but the PlayStation 2's release the following year axed Konami's Dreamcast release plans. So, there you go. Good on the Dreamcast. Still getting new releases in 2021. Then finally, rumor has it that there won't be a mainline Assassin's Creed this year due to pandemic pressures. Instead, apparently, Valhalla will get a major DLC, which is reportedly on top of the 2 big DLCs that Valhalla is already getting. And you know what? That sounds pretty damn awesome to me. I remember one of the history channels, I've forgotten which, that I really enjoy watching, telling a story of, a bunch of, Norsemen raiders or whatever who ended up, was it, in and around Constantinople? Or that they ended up in the service of, some king or something? I forget the details, but it sounded very, very, very cool indeed. So that seems like a neat setting. That said, yeah, Skill Up's review of Valhalla thoroughly put me off. But if you guys think that it's maybe worth reconsidering that game, let me know. Anyway, that's it for the news. I hope you enjoyed the news. Thank you very much for watching. I'll see you next time.